I wanted to be able to put into video the process I had taken over this term. For a lot of it, I had become enveloped in trying to perfect or develop a process that looks very simple, but was heavily time consuming. I'd use Runway AI to produce black and white versions of my interviews and then various coloured versions. When I first did this, it was almost as if they were just filters, and it was purely an aesthetic choice made from an inspiration of film work I had seen. I was keyframing sections of colour to the black and white image with little process to how they were selected. Unfortunately, due to the lack of ideas, I did this for a while. It was at this point that I could have chosen to leave the idea entirely and tried to pick something up to work conceptually. But at the time, this didn't feel right as I couldn't figure out a new format of digesting my concept. So anything else I produced wouldn't have worked, even though I tried to work with Up North Art Society to be able to produce a performance piece. This was just never fully took off the ground. Instead, I researched into the art documentary makers. Louise K. Wilson, who did an artist's talk at Lancaster this term. I got to speak to her personally about interview work and how it can coordinate with the personal. From this, I feel I took the way that the camera follows her object viewpoint whilst focusing on others' words. I looked at Beatrice Gibson, her use of colour and human emotion to draw emotion to the future of her daughter in Chrome Music Called to Me, and Elizabeth Price, who made factual pieces on the mundane and hyper-focusing on small elements of life. From this, I focused heavily on fine-tuning this small process of gradually trying to add colour. This time, I took the Deoldify AI model process to allow the technology that my discussions were so heavily based around to pick how it perceived this scenery. I also used the facial landmark software to select the pathway that the colour would appear in. Then using the mask pathway within Premiere Pro, as this was the best way to communicate between the two AI chosen images. I tried previously through Runway itself and After Effects before coming to this conclusion, but the layers were too difficult on either of these to have proper artistic autonomy. Although the blend isn't constant natural, the progression this has throughout the videos adds attention, building an effect to the emotion that they gradually begin to draw out in what they are saying. It goes from quite a theoretical basis to gradually considering the lingering effects this will have on people in the future. And this is a key feature on why the amount of colour they would gain within each 30 seconds of framing affects each moment. So much of my theme was based around a phrase that one of the interviewees states, which is, "We're so into technology, we're becoming it." It's because of this I wanted the technology to dictate controlled elements of the work, alongside me, the human/artist. I took Blender and AI tutorials this term. Now that I have a basic understanding of how the AI works from the models that I've talked about, I want to go on to feed frames of the imagery they discuss into Latent Videos model to be able to produce animation rendered from AI. This would hopefully blend together different ideas that each of these people provide. I can combine ideas of techno with the light projection and even different forms of hentai. I also hope to produce more animation and movement-based work that conveys these emotions. I like the example on screen as it presents more of a way that I might go on to describe emotive sensations to a machine/piece of technology rather than an anecdote or personal experience that I would use with a person. I also feel that this would be better than some imagery that ended up alongside my interviews for a machine rendered response. As much as I chose this imagery based off of odd phrases that I would be able to type into software search engines to find imagery, clustered together to form an emotive and relational personal standpoint to the societal observations from personal people. Having a more obscure approach in the future may better manipulate my theme. The outcome of my current work, however, I feel best encapsulates the emotions these people have to very alienating forms of work. That's why I wanted my image production to be alienating too. I played around with the introduction I first made to distort where we were in time, and even wanted an old TV aesthetic to provide the idea of a deserted past. I'd like that my main final piece has this alienating character coming from the two screens in the dark. I wanted to present that these could be deserted in the future and just left playing, a left sentiment from our present selves. It took a long time to develop this side of my work, which is why I've not been able to project it. I'm not sure it would have added too much to the work, as I like the intimacy of the lonely space that one screen provides. However, it would have been good to play around with this idea and see if these emotions run similar if placed on a large wall.